It's history time, and we're gonna do this because I already made a video earlier and I was almost done with it, and I messed up like big time. Like I always mess up, but this was worse than normal. So we're gonna try this again and we're gonna get through it this time. So I know you're ready to find out more about Amelia Earhart, but we are doing our map skills sheet first. So turn in your map skills booklet to map skills sheet 27. Map skills sheet 27, and we're going to do our U.S. territory map. Remember, we started going through the U.S. territories, Northern Mariana Islands, Guam, American Samoa, Puerto Rico, and U.S. Virgin Islands. So this is a map that's talking about those territories that are U.S. territories. So I'm going to talk you through it since it's just question and answer. We'll go through it together just like we would if we were in the classroom together. What continent is south of Puerto Rico? Number one, what continent is south of Puerto Rico? Very good. You can look. Puerto Rico's right underneath the United States, but south of Puerto Rico is South America. Good. What continent is south of Guam? Australia is south of Guam. Very good. So you're remembering your continents. If you were in Australia, what direction would you travel to get to American Samoa? Right, you just have to go east. You just have to go right across the water. You look at the tip of Australia and you go east from there and you'll be hitting American Samoa. Which is closer to the United States, the Virgin Islands or Guam? Obviously, the Virgin Islands are right underneath the United States, where Guam is all the way across the Pacific Ocean. In what ocean is Guam located? Gave you the answer. Yeah, Pacific Ocean. Very good. In what grid box is American Samoa located? So start with A. We do our letter and then our numbers. So start with A and go down and go across. What grid box? Grid box D3. Very good. D3. How many miles is it from Northern Mariana Islands to the southern coast of California? More than 2,000 miles or less than 2,000 miles? At the bottom, you see your little scale, distance scale, and it shows you that 2,000 miles is about, that inch or whatever. So you're going to look from Northern Mariana Islands and go to the south, the southern coast of California. And you can obviously tell, because it's only one of these would be 2,000 miles. When you get to 2,000 miles, you're still in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So to get to southern part of California, it's going to be more than 2,000 miles. Good. In what grid box is Puerto Rico located? In grid box C6. And then if you left American Samoa and traveled to Guam, what direction would you be going? You would be going northwest. So you have to go up north and then you have to go towards the west in order to get to Guam. And I told you guys, right, that I almost taught there. I almost was going to teach at a school in Guam. Can you imagine? I would have been on that little dot of an island in the Pacific Ocean. I know it's not a dot of an island, but I almost went there to teach, but I didn't. You got me instead. Sorry, you have to deal with me. All right, so let's find out what else is happening with Amelia Earhart. This is a woman who did some great things and broke many records. What's one of the first records that she broke? She flew higher than any other woman, and what was that? How high was that? 14,000 feet. She flew 14,000 feet higher than any other woman. What did she, because we talked yesterday about she finally was able to get her pilot lessons, but what did she end up buying? Right, she bought her first plane. What did she do? Well, yes, we know what she named it, the Canary, but what did she do though? Right, she painted it, remember? She painted it yellow, which makes it even better because she made it look like a canary. So she got her first airplane, painted it yellow, and named it the Canary. And then she was able to go higher than any other woman at that time by flying up to 14,000 feet. Now, there was a man who went across the Atlantic Ocean all by himself, solo. It's called a solo flight. Who did that first solo flight across the Atlantic Ocean? Good, Charles Lindbergh. Charles Lindbergh. Because what did they call Amelia Earhart after she did it? She didn't do it like he did because she ended up being what? the passenger in the plane. She wasn't the pilot, but she was the first lady to have gone across the Pacific Ocean, even though she was with George Putnam, which was the New York City publisher that asked her if she wanted to go. So they called her Lady Lindy, right? Because she was the first woman to go across. It wasn't a solo mission, but she was the first lady to go across. Then there was a club that Amelia Earhart started. What was that club called? The 99s. And who was it for? It was just for women pilots, right? So if you were a woman pilot, you could be a part of this 99s club all around the world, basically, and just, help one another and encourage one another. And she just continued to be a help and a blessing, but also breaking records, doing things that people just admired. So at what speed did she set a new record? What speed did she get the plane to go? Yes, at 180 miles per hour. Now, today they can go up to 700, we said, right? But back then, to go up to 180 miles per hour for a woman, that was top speed. So that's another record that she broke. Now, page 411, let's find out what else happens to her. Let's see how many other awards she might get or what goes on. Page 411, across the Atlantic Ocean. Amelia Earhart was once again asked, "Will you marry me?" Remember, we said she had been asked that before, but she was like, "No, I want to fly. That's all I want to fly. That's what I love, my planes. And some of you don't want me to fly my planes after I get married to you, so nope, not doing it." This time she said yes. What? She married her manager, George Putnam. We just said he was the one that flew with her across the Atlantic Ocean. He supported her career and did not want her to stop flying. She became Amelia Earhart Putnam, but the press continued just to call her Amelia Earhart. Her real name is Amelia Earhart Putnam, but hardly anybody called her that after she got married because they just had grown so used to and loved Amelia Earhart. It was just a quicker, easier, I guess. On May 20th, 1932, exactly 5 years after Charles Lindbergh made his famous solo trip across the Atlantic, Amelia Earhart decided she would make a similar trip. She would fly from Newfoundland, Canada to Paris, France. Her trip was dangerous from the start. If she flew too high, ice would form on the plane. If she flew too low, her instruments would not work. So she has to find that middle ground where she has to just really stay there, because if she even just accidentally got too high and that ice formed, or accidentally got too low and couldn't communicate or couldn't have her instruments working, how dangerous that would be. But then there was an even greater danger. She had to stay awake. Amelia Earhart must stay awake. If she fell asleep, she could crash. She sipped on chicken soup to stay awake for that, and to stay warm for that ride. So she's just sipping on chicken soup that whole time to try to stay warm and to stay awake. Finally, she saw land. She did not make it to Paris, but landed in a cow pasture in Ireland. Still, she had flown across the Atlantic alone, the first woman solo flight across the Atlantic. When she returned home to New York City, there was a parade in her honor. The next day, President Herbert Hoover awarded her a medal for her bravery. Amelia's friend. Who's her friend? Orville Wright. Look at that. Why maybe not Wilbur? Right, remember Wilbur died earlier, so Orville was the only one at that time who was alive. Orville Wright was probably amazed at the types of airplanes Amelia Earhart flew, because remember, their airplanes weren't like that at first at all. In fact, Mr. Wright and Miss Earhart exchanged many letters and enjoyed talking about their love of flying. The Wright brothers' flights had inspired hundreds of pilots, including Amelia Earhart. Mr. Wright supported her in all her trips and was happy to see her succeed. And you can see the picture of them right there. How cool is that? A picture of Orville Wright and Amelia Earhart next to each other. Just a bonus interesting fact. Amelia Earhart did not like coffee or tea. So coffee and tea, remember we said in health, they have caffeine in them. They help people stay awake. That's why people drink them so much. So in order to stay awake, she would drink hot chocolate on her long trips. So that's just an interesting little bonus fact. Other trips. Amelia Earhart was asked to make the first solo trip from Hawaii to California. And we just saw that in our map skill sheet booklet. You can go back and look where Hawaii is and going to California. This 18 and a half hour trip set another record. She soon decided to make a trip around the world. So she made that 18-hour trip from Hawaii to California, set a new record there, being the first solo woman to do that. Now she's going to plan on taking a trip around the world. Others had made a similar trip, but Miss Earhart wanted to travel near the equator. That would make the trip longer and harder. Why? Why would it be so much longer around the equator? Right, if you think about our globe, remember our globe we had in our classroom when we used to have a classroom? That equator is really wide. That's like the widest part of our earth, okay? And so to go all the way around there would be really far. It was going to make the trip longer and harder than those that were already attempted, because the other ones, maybe they did it, but they did it on a smaller part going around. Amelia Earhart purchased another plane and hired 2 men who would navigate for her. After making the first stop, the plane's landing gear collapsed and the wing of her plane was torn. The group waited 2 months for the plane to be repaired. Then one of the navigators had to return home. With the repaired plane, Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan, her navigator, were ready to try again. They changed the flight path because of dangerous weather patterns. The flight was going well. The team made several stops across the world because you have to refuel. You have to get more gas and everything and get ready to keep going. They made several stops to refuel and get supplies. They stopped in California, in Florida, Puerto Rico, Brazil, Africa, and many other places until they reached New Guinea. From here, they had only 7,000 miles to go. They were doing this. Only 7,000 miles to go of the 29,000 mile trip. So they've gone how far, Stephen? Yes, 22,000 miles. They only had 7,000 more to go. 22,000 miles they've traveled. Just 2 more stops and their journey would be complete. The next stop was Howland Island. Oh, we talked about that. Remember, that was in our words to remember or places to remember. A very small island in the Pacific Ocean. The United States built a landing strip and a lighthouse to help Amelia Earhart locate the island. It was only 2 miles long and less than a mile wide. It would be difficult to find. A U.S. Coast Guard ship came to help guide the plane to the island, but something went terribly wrong. Amelia Earhart could not hear the ship's directions and never found the island. The Coast Guard ship kept trying to contact her. Finally, they decided to send out a search party. A search party means they didn't hear from her. They were worried that she was somewhere lost and they didn't know what to do. So they sent out a search party for her. 7 ships and 65 airplanes began to search for Amelia Earhart and her plane and Fred Noonan, but her plane was never found. It is still unclear to this day what happened. Nobody, even to this day, has found her plane, and people have gone, in the ocean and tried to look for it. They've gone to the island and tried to search, and many other places in the Pacific Ocean, other islands, and tried to search. They have no idea. Nobody has found the plane or Amelia Earhart. Amelia Earhart knew the flights she made were dangerous, but she was willing to take the risks. She once wrote, "Adventure is worthwhile in itself." Although her life ended in tragedy, Amelia Earhart became a role model for women all over the world. In honor of such a brave woman, many streets, schools, and airports were named after her. Men and women alike learned from Amelia Earhart that they could find courage to do things others have said to be impossible. And that's why it's, she's so well loved, because people would say, oh, that's impossible. You could never do that. And she was like, try me. I'm going to try it. I'm going to see what I can do. Stop and think on page 414. Many people probably told Amelia Earhart the things she wanted to do were impossible. She tried anyway. Have you ever been told something was impossible? Maybe you were told you were too small or you're too slow to do something. Often, you can learn to do things just by practicing. As you learn to trust God, you will find that He will give you the ability to do whatever He calls you to do, even the really hard things. And look at what Luke 1:37 says, for with God, nothing shall be impossible. Well, you've got your comprehension check at the bottom. Sequencing, you're going to number this statement in order from first to last. So what happened first, what happened second, third, all the way to last. And that's it. So we'll review over that comprehension check. You don't have to send it to me on Monday, on Tuesday. We'll review over it whenever the next day is that we'll be doing this. Okay. I love you guys. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. See ya.